The story starts with a young woman named Jessica. She was running for some reason, with a bloody mark on her face. It looked like she'd been in a fight. When she reached her house, she cleaned her face but couldn't stop staring at her wedding ring. Suddenly, she saw armed men breaking in. Scared, Jessica climbed out the window and disappeared into the night. The next day, she woke up in a moving wagon. It stopped near a store, and when the driver wasn't looking, Jessica grabbed some food and a map. Feeling hungry, she ran into the woods. After walking for hours, she found a ranch and decided to stay for the night. In the morning, Jessica tried to sneak some food but was caught by the kind-faced rancher, Frank. Instead of getting mad, he offered her breakfast. Jessica was so hungry, she ate like she hadn't eaten in days. Frank's wife, Jeannie, asked how Jessica ended up there. Still scared, Jessica lied and said she was traveling north. Frank believed her and even offered her a ride. A small hope flickered inside Jessica. Maybe the world wasn't so bad after all. Meanwhile, a different story was happening. A woman named Elsa, a super tracker, got a new job, find Jessica. Years of chasing people had made Elsa lonely. She couldn't have friends or a normal life because of her work. To make things worse, Elsa got a terrible illness that made her muscles weak and shaky. She tried to hide it, but everyone could tell something was wrong. Elsa found support online with other people who had the same illness. Even though they talked to each other, Elsa felt empty inside. Her job was all about being strong and active, so getting weaker was a nightmare. One day, during an online chat, someone asked a scary question. Was Elsa thinking about giving up altogether? Elsa didn't answer, but the thought hung heavy in the air. Jessica sobs uncontrollably. The therapist pats her hand and throws out some inspirational quotes, but Jessica looks like she'd rather chew on a cactus. Frank, a trucker with a heart of gold, or maybe just boredom, drives Jessica north. They drive for hours, but the road decides it's going on vacation and just ends. So Jessica, with all the planning skills of a butterfly, decides to walk to Canada. An old man, bless his kind soul, gives her a backpack full of supplies and tells her to call if she gets lost, which, considering her walking plan, seems likely. Jessica thanks him profusely and skips off into the woods for a night of uncomfortable sleeping and questionable wildlife encounters. The next day, Jessica emerges from the woods, blinking in the sunlight like a mole who forgot his sunglasses. She stumbles into a small town and bellies up to the bar, begging the owner, Molly, for a job. Molly, unimpressed by Jessica's charm offensive, which probably involves a lot of tears and mascara, initially says no. But Jessica persists like a mosquito on a nudist colony and eventually convinces Molly to let her scrub toilets in exchange for a roof over her head. Later that night, while washing dishes that could probably walk on their own, Molly notices a ring on Jessica's finger. Assuming Jessica is on the run from a bad boyfriend, which isn't entirely wrong, but not in the way Molly thinks, they bond over past relationship woes. Jessica, ever the smooth liar, claims the ring is from her boyfriend, who is probably wondering where his germ-ridden girlfriend wandered off to. Feeling a weird sense of sisterhood, Molly offers Jessica a place to stay. Meanwhile, on the other side of nowhere, Elsa and her co-worker Vince are in full-on panic mode trying to find Jessica. Vince, who practically lives at work, spends more time with Elsa than his actual wife. Despite their best efforts, Jessica has vanished like a puff of smoke. Elsa's boss, Raymond, piles on the pressure, demanding they find Jessica before she waltzes across the Canadian border. We then take a trip down memory lane to the moment everything went sideways. Picture this: Jessica and her boyfriend Ian, all cozy by a campfire. A stray dog shows up, looking all cute and cuddly. Ian, with the wisdom of someone who's seen horror movies, tells Jessica to leave it alone. But Jessica, being Jessica, ignores him and showers the dog with affection, even cuddling with it through the night. Terrible decision in retrospect. The next morning, they wake up with nasty red spots all over them. Turns out, the cuddly pup was a carrier of something far worse than fleas, Ebola. This explains the government agents on Jessica's tail. They're not after a love fugitive. They're trying to prevent a potential zombie apocalypse, all thanks to Jessica's inability to resist a stray dog. The flashback gets worse. The red spots on Ian's skin aren't just spots anymore. They're bloody patches. Jessica, scared out of her mind, calls for an ambulance. But instead of a hospital, they end up at a creepy research facility in the middle of nowhere. Jessica gets stuck in a cage, while Ian disappears into a lab for who knows what. Determined to get out, Jessica hatches a daring plan. She smashes a light bulb, waits for a guard, then attacks him with a broken glass shard. Sharp and surprising. She races to find Ian, but what she finds chills her to the bone. Ian's almost a zombie. Before she can reach him, alarms blare, forcing Jessica to flee alone. She leaves a half-dead Ian behind. Back in the present, Elsa gets a tip, the ranch where Jessica stayed. Hoping for clues, she drives there in a special suit that looks like something out of an alien movie. Inside the ranch, it's a mess. Blood everywhere. Suddenly, a figure darts out. Jeannie. Elsa follows her to a shed, but trouble waits inside. Frank and Jeannie, now looking like they stepped out of a horror movie, attack Elsa. They're fast, they're vicious, but luckily Elsa has a gun.
Bang! Bang!
She fights them off. Shaken but alive, Elsa calls Raymond, demanding answers. This time, he spills the beans. It all goes back to a giant tech company called Addie and Jin. They were working on a secret virus with the government, and guess what? The cuddly dog was their test subject, Patient Zero. It escaped and infected Ian and Jessica. The virus keeps jumping from person to person, changing in scary ways. Here's the kicker. Jessica isn't sick, not a bit. She's a carrier, spreading the virus without even knowing it. She thinks the authorities are after her for murder, so she's running for the border. The truth hits Elsa hard. Jessica, clueless and contagious, is a walking disaster. But Elsa has a secret of her own, a disease that's slowly stealing her life. She tells Raymond she's too sick for this mission, but Raymond knew all along. He figured someone with nothing to lose, like her, would be perfect for this crazy job. He still instructs her to capture Jessica, dead or alive, so that they can prevent the potential outbreak. Later on, Elsa receives a video message from one of her colleagues, in which Jessica has been spotted. As a result, she wastes no time in driving towards the border town. In the meantime, Jessica wakes up in the morning and decides to go for a walk. Before leaving, she knocks on Molly's room door, asking if she wants to join her. But when she doesn't get any response, she believes that Molly is still asleep and goes out alone. In reality, Jessica has unintentionally transferred the virus to Molly and thus, she is suffering inside the room. Later, while Jessica wanders around the street, she is unexpectedly spotted by Elsa. Sensing the imminent threat, she immediately runs away. Elsa tries to chase her, but her ailment prevents her from doing so. Jessica then returns back to Molly's place and starts packing her belongings to leave. Amidst this, she hears an unusual noise from Molly's room, so she goes upstairs to check. As soon as she opens the door, she is startled by a horrific sight. A blood-covered and zombified version of Molly. The zombie then suddenly comes to live and starts charging towards Jessica. Jessica's blood turns to ice. Molly, her best friend, isn't acting right. Molly's eyes are crazy and she's trying to bite Jessica. Panic hits Jessica like a wave. She grabs a frying pan, the only weapon close by, and fights back. Tears stream down her face as she swings the pan, hating what she has to do. When it's all over, silence hangs heavy in the air. Jessica sinks to the floor next to Molly, her body shaking with sobs. But a new fear starts gnawing at her. People around her are getting sick, falling down like flies. And her own hair? It's coming out in clumps in her hands. Something is terribly wrong, and Jessica knows she's in deep trouble. Sometime later, Elsa tracks Jessica down and holds her at gunpoint. Entire predicament, explaining how she has been spreading the deadly virus to the people. But Jessica wouldn't listen. Elsa points the gun, tears welling up in her eyes. Jessica's infected, but unlike everyone else, she can still think straight. Elsa sees a chance, begs Jessica to come with her for a cure. But Jessica runs. She doesn't want to die, just see the world. With a heavy heart, Elsa shoots. As Jessica lies dying, she whispers a wish to travel more. Elsa, heartbroken, holds Jessica's hand, forgetting her own mask. Later, everything about Jessica disappears, like she never existed. A counselor visits Elsa, offering comfort for her illness. He holds her hand, then lets out a hacking cough. Elsa freezes. The horrible truth hits her. She's infected too, carrying the virus without getting sick. The monster she hunted hides inside her, a silent scream trapped in her chest.